Dave Canales once again decided to sit out his starters in game 2 of the preseason. And honestly, not really that upset about it this week. But next week, yeah, I'll have a problem with that.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe or follow the show for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And of course, right now, I'm live with you on YouTube as I am following every single preseason game, regular season game, and anytime there's any big breaking news, which is why it's important for you to subscribe on YouTube. But also you can check out the podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, right there in front of you, where on Wednesdays throughout the rest of the preseason, only one more week, and of course throughout the entirety of the regular season, I'm right here on the show answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions, either at me or DM me to get those questions into me right now. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started today. Week 2 of the preseason is in the books. The Panthers lose 15-12 against the New York Jets, a field goal fest that was concluded with a touchdown by Dylan Johnson. So congratulations to the undrafted free agent out of Washington. A nice moment for him and Dave Canales' offense, establishing the run with a bunch of guys who aren't going to be on the roster in 10 days' time. But I guess it's a feel-good moment and all of that. But who really gives a rip about what happened in a preseason game? Let's talk about what everyone's been talking about, the fact that the starters did not play once again tonight. A 2-15 team from a year ago with a brand-new head coach who's in his second year as a play caller, with a second-year quarterback who did not play well. And the only reason that Dave Canales is even here is to get this second-year quarterback who did not play well last year to play well this year, with a new receiver in Deontay Johnson, who didn't have the greatest couple of years last 2 seasons in Pittsburgh, primarily because Kenny Pickett's no good, Mitch Trubisky's no good, and he had Mason Rudolph as well, and Ben Roethlisberger was old and had to retire, and an offensive line that has new pieces that's been terrible the last couple of seasons. When healthy, they've been okay, but they're usually not healthy, so you get my point. People are tired of watching this bad football team, and they're really mystified by the fact that Patrick Mahomes is out here throwing balls behind his back in preseason games, and Bryce Young's on the sideline chopping up with Andy Dalton. Like, that just does not sit well with a lot of people, and I totally understand it. Quite honestly, looking at tonight, I'm not really that bothered by it. Like, I tweeted out yesterday on Friday night a PSA telling y'all they weren't going to play. I had a conversation with somebody who told me they're not going to play. And if you wanted to go to the game, I sent you that Gametime code so you could save some money and that you're not throwing away your dollars. Now, you'd be throwing away that code because it's only good for one time, but still, you know, this may be the only time people can go see the Panthers play, and I respect that. And I think it would be nice to go out and take your family to see the team play. Unfortunately, you're not going to get to see the starters. But I don't really feel that, like, pressed about that not happening, because they played like 60 snaps on Thursday. And Dave Canales talked about this when he was asked, and he's clearly tired of being asked about this, but he was asked about it yet again. Will they play next week? Are you going to play Bryce Young? And he was like, well, look at what we have and we'll get back to you, blah, blah. He doesn't ever get back to us. He just shows up and doesn't play him. You can see the guys out there before the game who's warming up, and you know, oh, okay, well, it's going to be like last week in New England, and that may be the same case next week in Buffalo. But he went out and said it all depends on how practice goes. It all depends on depth. And injuries are a reason why coaches like Sean McVay don't play their starters in the preseason. It's also a reason why Dave Canales isn't playing his starters in the preseason game like this week, and it's for a different injury reason. Sean McVay is doing it for injury prevention. Dave Canales is doing it because of the injuries that the team is currently dealing with. Remember, Ian Thomas, Tommy Trimble really haven't been available for the majority of training camp. You look at the running back position, Jonathan Brooks, he is not available right now and may not be available for the first 4 weeks of the regular season. Chuba Hubbard had a nasty slip that led into a vicious hit on Thursday against the Jets during joint practice. They evaluated his knee. Turns out he's okay. Robert Hunt had a scare. He's okay. Xavier Legette had a scare. He's okay. They have been banged up throughout the entirety of training camp. So I can understand why Dave Canales would not want to put out the Panthers' first team, and really Bryce Young. When Damian Lewis missed time because of family matter, has been managed because of a shoulder injury, I don't think you want to put out Brady Christensen, I suppose, at left guard when he's not your starting left guard. The Chandler Zavala, he's now injured right now as well with a hamstring. So that's not great in terms of depth. And when Robert Hunt has a scare, I don't think you're going to try to put him out there again against the Jets when you got lucky where he wasn't severely injured on Thursday. So I understand it from that standpoint. And the fact that they played 60 plus snaps on Thursday, which effectively is a full game anyways, do you need to go out there and play more snaps on Saturday? If he felt, not being Dave Canales, that they needed more time, then I'm sure he would have made that decision. And we remember Ron Rivera, completely different person. He did not like how the offense performed in preseason a couple of years ago when he was the head coach, and he had them go out there and play back when they had 4 preseason games in that 4th preseason game, which used to be when none of the starters would play. He had them play like a full half. So if Dave Canales felt that his team needed more work, he would have got the more work. So I do understand from the injury standpoint why he would not put him out there. And I'm not trying to sit here and defend him. Like I told y'all last week, I didn't understand at all why they didn't play against New England. I get the appetite to want to see what you have behind your starters, the primary players you expect to make plays for you this season. But he could have done that in the same manner the New England Patriots did it, where they played Brissett for a series, Drake May for a series, and the rest of it was a bunch of guys who are going to be working at Foot Locker in a week's time. That's what it was. And that's exactly what he could have done, but he decided not to do it. And he decided not to do it tonight. And it makes more sense because at least they got the work in on Thursday. Didn't get the work in last week. Got the work in this week. Will they get the work in next week, leading up to Buffalo? And will they play in that game? Like, that's the question that a lot of people want to know. And when Bryce is not playing, but Caleb Williams is playing, which he's a rookie, so I guess that's not a great example. Mahomes is playing. Josh Allen's playing. CJ Stroud's playing. A lot of the best players in the league are playing. Burrow played. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to people. And I totally get it. And as a podcast host, someone who's got to sit up here and find something to say about this for 30 minutes, I hate it too. Because I was struggling to stay awake for the preseason game because who really gives a rip about Dylan Johnson scoring a touchdown when he's not going to be on a team in a couple. Maybe he'll be on a practice squad. Maybe. But like, is he here to make plays? Did they draft him in the second round? Is he Chuba? He's not. I mean, he's not factoring into what they're going to do this season. So I'm not going to sit here and lie and think, well, that's a guy you should look out for, because he's not. So we'll see what happens next week. I said it last week. I'll say it again. Dave Canales, if he makes the decision to not play his starters at all, let me get a sip of water here. He's opening himself up to some criticism. Does he care? What you think? What I think? Nope. Doesn't care at all. But there's going to be a lot of people ticked off if this team that went 2-15, new coach, new system, new players, unproven quarterback, goes out there and lays an egg week 1 against the Saints. It's just maybe not the best way to go about things. But I understand this week you had the joint practice. You got some guys banged up. That's important. You're not putting Bryce Young back there. Even with Brady Christensen, who's been a starter, you're not putting him back there with someone who you see as your 6th offensive lineman as a backup. You want to have the starters out there for him, and those guys just aren't healthy or in shape in terms of Damian Lewis coming back and trying to get back in shape. So it is what it is. I don't like it. That's just the way it's going to be, I suppose. Maybe next week will be different, but this week, it wasn't. All right, let me take a quick pause, and I'll come back, and I guess we'll talk about what happened in the preseason game that maybe matters. Just a moment here on Locked On Panthers. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the price you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Since I'm live here on YouTube, might as well go out there and check out some of the comments people talking about. Looks like Plummer can throw quick slants, so maybe some value to keep him around. We scored a touchdown. Jack Plummer is not it. They keep saying Plummer and not Plummer. Jake Luton needs to be QB3. First touchdown in 3 years in the preseason. Is that true? Is that really? Someone said I'd rather watch Hecker go out and sling it. I guess I can put those out there because can you guys see these? Yeah, there you go. Panthers are not playing any starters next week, which has been the plan all summer. Possibly. That's what Paul Mancini says. They should put Plummer and Luton with the starters. Eagles need to add the offensive line. I don't even know what that means, but yeah. That seems to be the plan right now. And I did silently wonder to myself, way back before the preseason began, whether Canales was going to be someone who wanted to see his starters, or if he's going to be someone who wasn't going to. And I do really think that the amount of injuries that they have suffered so far in the preseason, or really during training camp, rather, has played a pretty big role in his decision not to play Bryce Young. Like, again, if like Damian Lewis has been someone who they've had to monitor, I don't think they're going to play him out there, and they're not going to have the backup and then have Bryce Young out there, because backups get quarterbacks killed, y'all. We've seen it. And y'all, people were freaking the hell out last week about the backup tackles and they were better tonight. It's crazy. When you take out Badara Traore, who's not going to be on the team, the offense is a little bit more functional than it was a week ago. I get the injury part of it as far as the guys that have been banged up, and whether he feels like they have the amount of depth offensively to put out starters. Defensively, like, Clowney's never going to play. That guy, they were holding him for the season. I get that. JC Horn, I get they would want to hold him for the season. It's kind of similar to in the past with someone like Christian McCaffrey. When he was banged up dealing with his injuries, they were going to throw him out there. When we're going to use the guy a ton, it makes no sense. Like Chuba Hubbard, even if he didn't take the hit he took on Thursday, I don't see any reason to play him. Like Miles Sanders, sure. Chuba, no, you don't need to do that. We'll see how it works out. But let's look at some of the things that happened in the preseason game tonight as Panthers fall 15-12 against the Jets. Oh God, I'm trying, y'all. It's like, you know me, I can't sit up here and BS you. I really can't. And I'm sitting there tonight, and I'm just like, really? We're gonna do this? We're doing. I already knew this was gonna be the case. Just like, we're doing this again. You're gonna really have me come up here and like try to come up with something to say about a bunch of dudes who aren't gonna be on the team in 10 days. Well, here we are. Terrace Marshall, Jonathan Mingo, Jordan Matthews, Tavion Sanders, Mike Boone. Those are the starting weapons, I suppose. TMJ, where he's at right now. He's a guy who made some plays on Thursday, but did not do himself favors with the whole throwing the football on DJ Reed. Canales is ticked off about that. And this is a guy the Panthers are wanting to trade anyways. And there's a known that he went out there, made some plays, and then he made a catch or two, I think, tonight. So that's a positive. They're going to try to trade him. I just don't see him being around. Mingo made a nice catch and run that was brought back because of a holding penalty. He's going to be fine. and they need to get Leggett out there. It would be nice if Leggett can play next week. We'll see, because he was not out there for a team period at all this week. So not a surprise that he not playing a preseason this week. Jordan Matthews didn't really do much tonight. Jatavion Sanders was targeted 3 times, got the receptions. Good to see. I guess 2 receptions rather. Good to see that he was actually involved in the passing game tonight. Mike Boone was injured. They're evaluating him. Not sure how serious that is. Mike Boone is a player that I have been told may make this team and this staff. I was already told before that the staff really likes him, and they haven't really utilized Blackshear. Blackshear has been unavailable for both the preseason games. I'm trying to think. I don't really feel like I saw him that out there this week doing a ton. Don't think it's an injury. No one's really asked about that. But that's something to monitor. Offensive line this week, Ricky Lee was back out there at one of the tackle spots. Tyler Smith, who they brought in from Western Carolina last week on Sunday, he was out there. Mason Brooks, who literally signed with the team on Friday, he was out. Andrew Rame was at center, then Jack Anderson. I honestly felt like this defensive line played better this week than they did last week, which is good as far as them offensively being able to do something. But Lee's the only one of those 5 that has a chance, and it doesn't well, they don't have a lot of depth anyways at tackle, so I don't want to say it doesn't speak well to his ability to make the team because he had to play so much tonight. I still think he's fighting for that final spot. In fact, it's Zavala, who was apparently in uniform but did not play. The fact that he had a hamstring and he was actually having a pretty good camp, he was going to make it over Lee. Lee may be back in line to make the team. But again, the Panthers have top priority on the waiver wire. They may be in a situation. Well, they're not. There's no maybe. They're in a situation where they can get who they want to get once that time comes. DJ Johnson, Eku Leota, we're at outside linebacker again. Trevin Wallace, Claude Cheros at inside linebacker. I thought Trevin played well. I thought Claude played well. Those 2 guys that both Wallace is already on the roster, but Claude Cheros, he's played his way on the roster for sure. Special teams guy. And that was a group looking at him, Tay Davis, Chandler Wooten, Michael Barrett, 4 dudes or special teams kind of players. They're going to be fighting for a spot to be on this roster. Tay Davis got hurt tonight, carted off with a foot injury, and that ain't good. That's not Tay Davis. That's Cam Gill, who's injured. That is Sam Franklin Jr., 3 special teams kind of players who are now out for, we'll see how long. But Gill, haven't really heard much about him, but apparently it's kind of significant. But he's still sticking around, which may speak to their appetite to keep him around as a special teams ace whenever he's available. Davis, we'll find out. Foot on that turf, not great. Just thinking about how that typically works out. Players union keeps telling the owners, stop being cheap, give us the grass. And they keep saying, no, Morgan Wallen concerts. That's what's more important, not the player's health. Let's see. But Cherilus played well, so he should be solid. Wallace is solid. I think Leota should be on the roster. DJ Johnson didn't do much tonight. TJ Smith, again, started at defensive line, had a sack. Back-to-back weeks, he's not had a sack in a preseason. That's 2 sacks for TJ Smith in his career, playing in the preseason for the Panthers. DJ Johnson, 0 sacks. Got problems at outside linebacker going into the season. Deshaun Jameson, Lamar Jackson back at corner. Lamar Jackson had a nice PBU to prevent a touchdown, so he's still making plays. He was solidly that 3rd corner this week. When JC sat a lot this week at practice, and it's not due to injury. It's really about preservation. And when you give him the 5th-year option, you're focused on preservation when it comes to a player as good as him and a player also has the injury history that J.C. Horn has early on in his career here in Carolina. But consistently, I looked out there at practice on Monday and on Thursday when I was out there, and Lamar Jackson was in with the ones as that 2nd corner, or really got me established as a 3rd corner on this roster. So he played well again. Jamie Robinson had some nice plays. Got a bad penalty they called on him late in the game. Not really that big of a deal, but he played well. And I'm starting to think with some of the injuries that they had, like at safety with Xavier Woods, I know they brought in Ruby Ford, who started 15 games over the last 2 seasons up in Green Bay with the Packers. Robinson may be in a spot to where he actually is going to be on this team. Alex Cook, Devontae Richardson, what a great week for him. Undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M, had a pick of Bryce Young where he read it the whole way on Monday. Then later on, Jack Plummer I don't know. Jack was just like rolling out and let me just toss it up there. And I thought it was a pick. Mind you, I was 115 yards away. I thought it was an interception. And Gerald Rivera said, anything that's close is a pick. Maybe it's a PBU, maybe it's a pick. Doesn't matter. He made some plays there on Monday, and he made a play again, getting an interception on Saturday. That's a deep safety room. There's an opportunity with Xavier Woods dealing with a groin injury that appears to be a little bit more significant than the Panthers originally believed it was to be. Maybe Damani Richardson, I think he definitely has done himself some favors this week in terms of trying to make the roster. Mike Boone, I said, was being evaluated as well. That's really what stood out to me from this. The offensive line was much better. That's 4 out of 5 guys that have no shot of making the roster, but good to see that they performed better this week. I thought, oh yeah, Jack Plummer, let's talk about him, I suppose. It was 11 of 18, 42 yards. And then Luton looked better again, like 2 of 2 for 19 yards. I'm not getting off my position. It's a waste of a roster spot to have a third quarterback. It is. If it was Joe Webb, who played special teams, fine. Jack Plummer doesn't play special teams. He's not even a holder. He has no value, in my opinion, to this roster on the 53. Does he have value as a developmental player on the practice squad? Absolutely. No problem with that. I do have a problem, big problem, with him being on the roster, taking up a spot for a player who could actually help the team. If he ever is on the roster as a 53-man, on the 53-man roster, and he's up there as the emergency third quarterback, and if Bryce gets hurt and Andy gets hurt and he's out there, he will not help the team. They will lose. He's not good right now. He looked better this week than he did a week ago. That's development. That's growth. That's a good thing. Do that on the practice squad, not on the 53. That's where I stand there, and I'm not getting off it. Like, I don't give a rip who it is, who the third guy is. I'm not interested. Have somebody who can actually play special teams, can actually be out there on the field, opposed to a quarterback who you hope you never see. I just don't even see how it's even an argument. You never want, it's an emergency. You never want to see, when you're in your car, you never want to use the e-brake. You're glad it's there, I suppose, but you never want to actually use it. Because if you're using it, you're probably not in a good situation. Maybe that's not the best analogy, but that's the one I came up with. I'm not for it. Okay. Taking one more quick pause, I guess. I'm running out of things to say. So I guess I'll look at your chats here, and we'll wrap things up here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We have something a little different for you today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form payment, and you can cancel anytime. So for people out there who love this team, but you don't live in the Charlotte area and you aren't able to access the Panthers games legally, go on and do this. Bet $5. Get YouTube TV. I've had YouTube TV since like 2016. I love it. Think it's great. You get like unlimited recording and all of that. That's awesome. FanDuel's awesome. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Yeah. All right, about to wrap things up here, but I guess I'll take a look at the chat to see some thoughts. Paul Mancini saying 6 wide receivers: Deontay Johnson, Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, Marshall, and Amir Smith-Marset. I agree with 5 of the 6 for sure being on the team. Johnson, Thielen, Legette, Mingo, and Smith-Marset. Marshall, though, we'll see. Canales is not happy, and this is a guy who wanted to be traded last year. Didn't have a market, couldn't catch the ball. We'll see how that works out. I don't think he's going to be someone they keep around. Maybe they do. Let's see. Harrison saying here, Marshall could probably start on New England. Not sure they have anything of value in the trade, though. That reminds me, someone earlier this week asked me about Juju Smith-Schuster, who was cut by the Patriots. someone was asking me, like, oh, should the Panthers look into him? It's like, Juju Smith-Schuster was just cut by the Patriots, who also, I mean, the Patriots may have the worst wide receiving core in the NFL. If you can't be on the worst wide receiver core in the NFL, I don't think you can help the Panthers. So I was like out on that whole situation. Let's see, Smurthcat. They may not keep three quarterbacks. Let's see. They may not keep three quarterbacks. Someone has to play since they're not going to play Bryce and Dalton. No, hey, I don't have a problem right now, Smurfcat. They can absolutely play three quarterbacks. Or they can, Plummer and Luton. I don't care if they play in the preseason. My thing is, once we get to 4 p.m. on Tuesday, August 27th, he does not need to be on the roster. That's all I'm saying. Now, when we get to Wednesday, August 28th, he can be assigned to the practice squad. But at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on August 27th, he does not need to be on the roster. That's all I'm saying. Does he need to be out there to play in the preseason? Totally cool with it. No problem at all. Think it's beneficial to like get a look and see if this is the guy they want to develop. But is there a benefit to him being on a 53-man roster? No. Metro 803, third string quarterbacks practice. Oh, yeah, he's talking to Paul. He's having a conversation here. Miles Sanders trade with Carolina paying half. No. They're going to run him to the ground. Brooks is not healthy. That's a big reason why Miles is here. And the fact that Canales is open and saying that they always knew that he was not going to be, he being Jonathan Brooks was not going to be ready to go. And the reporting from Rapport clearly came from Jonathan Brooks's camp that they wanted the public, you and me, media people, to think he was going to be fine. The team, though, that got to speak with him, got his medicals, I'm sure had the conversations with the doctors and his all that, they knew the situation. So that's why Miles Sanders is still here. That's why they gave him the $2 million bonus, even though it's not like they had much recourse anyways. They weren't going to lose salary cap space this year. They were going to keep it, and they're going to run him to the ground. They're going to do the same thing with Chuba, and then their hope is that Brooks comes back, maybe healthy at some point this season, can help him out. But really, they want him to be their guy next year in 2025. So that's where things stand there. So I don't see Miles Sanders being someone who they're going to trade. I don't think it makes, you're giving up you're going to give yes, they would have to pay, but I also think you have to give something up also, like an asset. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Metro 803 waiver wires will be jumping. We'll fill what gaps need to be filled. I agree. You may be upset about them not having, I don't know if you're still upset, but you were upset about them not having number one overall pick. They don't lose the priority on the waiver wire. They have it for the first 4 weeks of the season. So they can get who they want. They can put that claim in. They can get somebody who can help them, and they will do that. I have 100% let's not say that. I have confidence that they can do that. All right. So we'll see how it all works out, man. But it was interesting. We'll see if Dave plays the starters next Saturday. They're not going to cut Ian Thomas. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. They're going to keep 4 tight ends. They're going to keep Tommy Trimble. It's going to be Ian. It's going to be Javion Sanders. It's going to be looking like Jordan Matthews, possibly. And understand this, because they have the top waiver wire priority, they could always get another tight end once roster cutdowns happen and cut somebody. And that could be for any position. If you think somebody makes it, think they're safe, you're right out the door the next day. Happened last year, Brandon Zylstra. It's like great story. I was talking to Mike K. And Mike had told me he went to talk to Zylstra. He's like, hey, congrats, man. You made the team. And Zylstra's like, don't jinx it. He jinxed it. That could happen again this year. So we'll see how it all pans out. But appreciate 160 of you right now live with me on this Saturday night. And it's always fun talking to y'all. It is a little unfortunate to not be able to like break down the guys, the starters playing, kind of get more of a glimpse of what this team could look like this year. But I hope that everyone enjoyed the Thursday pod, and that's still out there. Go check that out here on YouTube. Go check it out on your podcast feeds. Go hear what I had to say, because I thought Bryce looked great. And if I can leave you anything this week to wrap up week 2 of the preseason, Bryce Young looked like the real deal on Thursday against the Jets. And yeah, it's frustrating that you didn't get to see him play tonight in a game setting. Totally get that. I think the injuries that this team is dealing with is a big reason for that. And also maybe just Canales feels like they got enough with the joint practice. Totally agree with that. But he looked good. And he looked good without Deontay Johnson out there and without Adam Thielen really being a big part of the offense on Thursday. That is a positive and something that everyone should hold on to going into next week's preseason game and then potentially into the regular season if we don't get to see Bryce Young next week. So I will say that as far as how people are feeling, and feel how you want to feel. Totally feel that way. Be frustrated if you like. I'm not trying to tell you to feel, other than I think you should be excited about what Bryce Young put out there on Thursday and what that potentially could mean for this team moving forward here into the rest of this 2024 preseason and into the regular season. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, on Twitter at Julian Council, right there in front of you, where on Wednesday, I'll be answering your weekly Friday mailbag questions. So either at me or DM me to get those questions into me right now. But in the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole, as always, and forever. Keep pounding, and I'll talk to y'all on Tuesday.